Welcome to join the tour. I guess that makes me a rock star of some sort, huh? Which I'm definitely not. So, you know, this is really humbling. I think there's more people in this room right now, in this tour version of London than we had in our full user conference just 2 years ago in New York. It's right about the same, Anya. I bet we're a little bit over. That's humbling, and I think on behalf of myself and Lloyd, who's around, and Ben Porterfield, the other founder who couldn't come out for this, thank you for coming. We really, really appreciate your support. How many people here are from outside of kind of the London metro area, just out of curiosity? Wow, that's a good number of folks. Okay, great. Well, thanks for traveling. How many people, if any, went to one of the join events either in New York or San Francisco or some of the stuff that we've done here? Okay, not too many, so a lot of new faces. Great. So, what I think I'll do today is kind of tee things up. I'll explain, what brought Looker to the place that it is today and where we think we can go together, helping the data consumers that we serve get more value out of the information that we're trying to provide to them. And I think it's really exciting right now because there's been a lot of work done over the last 5 and 10 and 30 years around data and data technologies. And I think we're really getting to the point where we can start to finally deliver the value. There's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of talk about how we're going to make companies data-driven. There's been a lot of talk about data democracy. There's been a lot of talk about tooling, from BI and analytics and AI and all that kind of stuff. But there hasn't traditionally been a lot of real proof points. And I think we're right on the cusp of that. And I get encouraging. We did a data breakfast before this with some of the early customers. And the things that you all are doing with data is some of the most interesting in the world. And that's a huge opportunity. As John was saying, one of the best things you could do over the course of today is talk to each other. Get some names, follow up with folks who are doing similar things to you, because you are it. You are the smartest people in data, literally in the world. I mean, these joint conferences, we're lucky. A lot of great people come to it, so take advantage of that. But we really are on the dawn of a new age. And when I think about where we can go, I think you have to do a little bit of a look back. You have to say, what got us here? Like, why are we in the position that we are today? Why are things a little bit messy with data? And where can we go moving forward? And, we use this idea of the first, second, and third wave. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now of business intelligence and data analytics tools. So I'll take you through it real quickly. For those of you who have heard this, sorry. But I think it's important to have a common vocabulary and understanding. I think, business intelligence and data tools really started a long time ago with this first wave of BI. And the first wave of BI was all about these big monolithic stacks. They grew up, 25 years ago. And it was really about providing very accurate answers to important questions. I had to do my financial reporting. I had to truly understand inventory, and I would hire a big consulting firm and they would model out my business and I would deploy like a big business object or Cognos or Hyperion or one of these really big systems. And really importantly, these systems, even if you talk to the early founders of those companies, they were dealing with one primary technical problem. And that was that the database was slow, and the database was really expensive. So when I had an application, or I had my ERP system, or my CRM, or whatever acronym you want to use, and I had that running on a database, like a big Oracle database, it was not really oriented for analytics. It was really all about transactions. So when I wanted to do any kind of analytics or reporting, I had to be very careful. I knew what questions I would ask. I found the 20 questions. I would build a whole project around it. I would extract data out of systems. I would use ETL tools. I would perfectly manicure the lawn, and I would create these cubes and things like that, and I would give that to my users in terms of data access. And that was interesting because on one way it worked. Like what was produced out of those systems was usually very accurate, right? There was a lot of work that went into it, but it was very accurate. But it really grew up around the idea and evolved around the idea that the database was slow. And that idea we can't shake. No matter what is happening on the underlying infrastructure, I think what we've seen is tool vendors such as the ones that are out today are really evolving around that same idea that the database is slow. It's kind of like the parable of the elephant chain. You know, when the elephant's a baby, they put a chain on it on the circus, and then it grows up, they take the chain away, but the elephant can walk away, but it doesn't know that it can walk away. Right? There's this idea that I have this old belief that is no longer true. And that's really one of the problems that happened in the first wave. And when the first wave, as people started to get tired of how monolithic these stacks were, how hard it was to make changes, we really looked at some way to move to the next wave. And the way we moved to the next wave was kind of problematic. And I use this silly analogy. I don't know if anybody remembers the old internet video of the whale. This is a US thing. And it washed up on the coast in Oregon, on the west coast of the US. And it was a big whale. And this was even before camera phones and all that kind of thing. So the Department of Transportation decided the best way to get rid of this giant whale on the beach that was dying and starting to smell bad was to pack it full of explosives and blow it up. And then all the pieces would get eaten by seagulls, and the problem would go away. So they advertised they were going to do this, and people showed up with picnic blankets, and the local news crew came out, and you can look this up. It has 1 billion views on YouTube. But what happened when they blew it up was a totally uncontrolled explosion. And giant ton-sized pieces of whale flew up into the air and landed, and people were running for their lives, and it was crushing cars, and there was stink everywhere. It was horrible. It was funny, but it was horrible. I don't think anybody got hurt. And that's kind of what happened when we blew up the first wave of BI and analytics tools. We created a mess, and I was part of this. I was part of some of these companies. We blew that first stack up because we hated it so much, and it seemed slow, and our users weren't getting what they wanted, and we said things need to be self-service, and we have to put everything into the hands of our end users. So we created a lot of tools. We created visualization tools, data catalog tools, data prep tools, governance tools, all kinds of tools, right? But the tools didn't really hook together very well, right? In the old monolithic stacks, those are all kind of one big thing. In the new world, if I just had to do visualization, I could get data and do visualization. That was awesome. Or if I wanted to kind of create a catalog, I'd get a catalog, so I'd kind of create a catalog. But the systems themselves didn't really work too well together. And I would say that created a mess. For departmental solutions, they worked okay, but when we wanted to try to get an overall view of data for our entire company, it really created a mess. And the mess has repercussions. And it really has repercussions to our end users. And as we go out and talk to you all and talk to customers or talk to people who are doing data projects, we constantly hear one or both of these two fundamental problems. The first problem is because of this tool, the supply chain of data is so difficult, people wait in what we call data breadlines. The Depression era, breadlines, where you're hungry, you're waiting in line, there's only so much to give out. So, I have a question of data, and I go over to the data team's office, and I need 1 million rows of data to put into this tool so I could do some research. Okay, come back tomorrow. Here's the data. All right, great. The data's accurate and everything's good. It came from the data team. And then they go back and they look at it no, that wasn't. I have a little bit different question, actually. That's not the right data. So they go back to the data team's office. But now there's a little line that's formed of the other people who want their questions answered. And they get the stuff and they go back. And then they go to their third question, the next day, and they realize they needed something a little different. And now there's 100 people in the queue. There's a big, long line, and they won't wait. They bail out. And even though our users have 100 questions, they want to be driven by their own curiosity, they're asking 2 or 3 or 4 questions because the line is just too long, right, to get data to put in a tool so that they can do analysis, to get the official cut of data. So what we see is people stop asking questions, and that's bad. That should be, no, we don't want that to happen. Or if they don't stop asking questions, they go rogue. So they go and they get their own data. And they go and they try to get the extractions direct from the back-end systems that they don't really know how maybe core metrics should be put together, or they're forgetting to take tax out or inventory returns or whatever it is. And they think they're operating on the same number, right? And then we constantly see in these worlds where things have gotten very chaotic and everyone's operating on their own versions of the data or trying to extrapolate from last month's cut of data or whatever it is, that people will get in a room and will say, hey, what's the lifetime value of your customer? And the marketing person will say, 10,000, and the other person will say 11,000, and the other person says 2. And it's like they're just totally defining the same metric differently, and we believe that this just causes this chaos. So we're grappling with these two kind of silly problems that I thought would have been solved 10 years ago, but they are still big problems in organizations because we as vendors created a mess of tooling that got us to this place, right? So we had the first wave that gave us answers that were pretty accurate, but it was inflexible, and then we're kind of in the second wave where we really have a bit of a mess on our hands that we have to get our arms around. There's very little governance. So, Looker, our vision has really always been the same. Like, this is nothing from a vision perspective new. We've been operating to this vision for a while, and we talk about the third wave of BI and data and analytics tools. And we think this third wave is fundamentally different, and it starts from where it came from. So the first and second wave of tooling was really evolving around this elephant's chain problem, this problem that the database was really expensive, right? That you couldn't put load on the database, basically. You had to extract into silos. But the third wave is growing up around a different idea. While the tools on top were evolving, the infrastructure underneath was having a total revolution, right? Big data happened for all the hype of big data. Like, big data happened. Really big databases became commonplace. I mean, just go out and talk to Snowflake and Google Cloud with BigQuery and Amazon Redshift and those kinds of products. You can now collect and store everything, and it's cheap. And those systems are built for analytics, not so much for transactions. So the whole thing that tools were evolving around before got ripped out, and a new underpinning was created, and that was that the database was fast, and it was built for analytics, and you could keep everything, not just a few things. And Looker was one of the first tools that really built a new platform on top of that idea. So we walked away from the elephant chain. We really started somewhere fresh, and people thought we were crazy. They said, well, no, you can't ask databases questions directly. That's stupid. You'll put too much load on it. And we said, no, I think that things are getting much better, especially as you look at the Hadoop world and what was happening there early. And then you started to see the Redshifts and BigQueries and Snowflakes, and you could start to do this. So what would happen in this third wave if, rather than do all these little separate pieces in this mess of the second wave, we consolidated all that into a single platform? So what we wanted to do was create this environment that had all of those pieces, had governance, had data prep, had ability to do aggregations in the database, managed all the performance in the database, did the visualization, did all those things in one platform, and put it on top of this really fast infrastructure. And then we took a step back and we said, wow, the more we looked at it, that's exactly what they were doing internally at Google and what they were doing internally at Facebook with their own home-built tools. And we knew there was validity there. And as we went out and talked to early customers, we were seeing it. We were seeing adoption. And people wanted that comprehensive system that could give them governance, as well as this self-service for end users. And that was great. But we didn't stop there. And I think that's what we'll be talking about a lot the rest of the day today. What we started to see was really interesting stuff that you all began to do on top of this platform. So we clearly have our business intelligence tool that sits on top of this Looker platform. But then really quickly, we started seeing you all take our APIs and start to integrate data into all other kinds of things, into pricing engines, into your own systems. Just really we started to see data live on in organizations just through API access. So we had our BR tool, we had API access. And then we started to see you all build applications out of this platform for your users, these data applications that we'll be talking a bit about. So what started to happen is people began to do more, and that was really, really interesting. So that's a lot of the technology, but why? Why do we care? Okay, Frank, I get you giving me a Looker commercial here, but why do I care about that? Why, right? And I think the reason to care about this is sort of where we started, right? We're on the cusp of something. And all of this transformation in the technology stack has value. And it has value on this path to driving the idea of data culture. And I don't use that lightly because I don't like the term data culture. I think it's a little bit too California hippy-dippy. But for me, what we hear you talking about is really driving this cultural shift in your organizations where people actually use data to answer and inform their decisions. Right? And I think we're right on the cusp. We've come this way. We've ridden this shift in underlying infrastructure. We've gone through the first and second wave of tools, and we've deployed lots of stuff. Now we're finally at this point where we can start getting real value into the hands of users. And I think that's our call to action. So if you think about it, we're right on the cusp of giving every person, right, the insights they need to succeed. Like, that's what we're after. It's more of a cultural shift, I think, than a technology thing. And I think as I've talked to many of you, or as many of you are going back into your organizations, that's probably the higher level why of why you're here. You know, it's to drive this change in your organization. And that's a really, really big thing. Because what's been holding us back is this like data chaos and data breadlines and all this stuff that we had out of this really difficult data supply chain. And you know, you think about it, when you're trying to solve those base needs, it's kind of like hunger, right? If you're hungry and you don't have shelter, you can't really do great things, right? It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Back to psychology class. I mean, if you're really just grappling with the basic things, I need to get reliable metrics in front of my end users, right? Like that's hard, and if that continues to be hard, you can't move up the value chain. And we think that's what's becoming interesting. We can start to solve those base problems by having this common platform where we can provide better governance, we can put these reliable metrics in front of people, and what's interesting is how people then start to use it. And what's really, really exciting is that there's actually a new workforce now that is hungry for this. That's yet another thing that's changed. You know, so we've had this architecture revolution, we've had new tools on top, and now we actually have people who care. Like, that's different, you know? I think, you know, my generation, it was all about PowerPoints and opinions, and highest paid person in the room is going to be able to kind of get whatever they want, right? Now it's more, let's drive this by informed decision making. You know, let's bring the data to the table. And this new hungry workforce, I mean, these are people who have titles. They're real people. It's the quantitative marketer. It's the growth hacker. Gosh, anybody who's in a customer success function is generally driving off of data. These are people who absolutely do their job around data. You know, in a sec, Jonathan from King's going to be up talking with Daniel, and you think about like a data-driven product manager and how you inform maybe the games that you're building based on what people are doing in them. It's actually a live cycle that says, here's how people are operating, here's how I'm going to change my product, right? These are people who operate in data. And that's exciting because now, not only do we have the technology, we have the people who care about it, right? That's pretty interesting. And I think this is a big shift. This is beyond, you know, Looker and beyond a technology company. I think, you know, if the 1990s were about that horrible word, the knowledge worker, like the knowledge worker people used to, like, there's something different going on right now. I don't know what it is, but it's this idea of the instrumented workplace. These new employees who are basically instrumenting everything in their world. They're watching everything. They're less about updating transactional systems, but they're looking at what's happening on the website, what's happening in the e-commerce system, what's happening in inventory, what's happening across all of my sentiment information, et cetera. And they're making decisions in real time and actually doing their job based in data. And these new workers are really the people that we have to serve. So if you think about, you know, what you can do as you leave, you know, the day to day, it really becomes this higher level calling of how do you empower these people? How do you help where you're just not answering the questions yourself, but you're giving them the tools so that they can ask and answer their own questions? That is what will drive this cultural shift. Because any major change like this, any major cultural change requires leaders. And I think the people in this room here today, you all are the leaders. You are the cultural leaders in your organizations to drive data culture, right? And the interesting thing now is it's finally possible. You know, we've been talking about these ideas for years, but we're actually seeing you all do it. And that's what the exciting thing is. Okay, what? How? Like, I get it. That sounds interesting, but how? And I think the how is just kind of putting your head up beyond like, I'm hungry, to what I can do now that I've solved that, you know, to be more specific and more value to my organizations. And so much in data over the last 5 or 10 years has been like a single tool. Like, we've had a hammer and we hit everything with a hammer, right? You need to turn that bolt. No, we're going to hit it with a hammer instead, because that's the one thing that we've had. And the one thing that we've had is the dashboard. It's been like death by dashboard. Oh, there's a data problem, put a dashboard in front of it. Put a dashboard in the lobby, put a dashboard over near the sales team. That solves the problem. Woo, and they serve their purpose, but that's probably not the end game. We've relied on this idea of put a dashboard in front of it. And having dashboards all the time is sort of like driving your car, looking in the rearview mirror. It'll tell you kind of what happened, some basic stuff, but I can't really interact with it in any meaningful way and really dig deeper. And I think what our purpose is, and I think the idea of this data platform, is to start giving businesses more of the tools they need beyond sort of that simple hitting everything with a hammer, so that people can actually do their job better, to empower those instrumented workers, so to speak. And I think those applications have actually started to emerge already, whether you look at business intelligence or the broader SaaS software marketplace. There are starting to be more and more things that you would call data applications. And that could be a marketing analytics tool, that could be sales analytics tools, that could be lots of tools. If you think about like companies like New Relic or Datadog that do that for DevOps engineers, those are largely monitoring systems that are data tools. If you think about the companies like Gainsight who are doing this for customer success, et cetera. There are lots of tools that are emerging that are actually growing a lot faster than some of the data BI companies, right? Because they're really wrapping data around people's specific work processes. And Looker's vision remains the same. It is to be the platform to build those data applications, right? So not only do we have like the business intelligence tool, the visualization stuff that most of you use today if you're a customer already, and not only do we have like powered by Looker and the ability to kind of customize this around my applications, but we've really started to see you all build, and we build as well, these specific applications that take data and actually allow people in these job functions to work in data. It becomes the place that they work. So if I want people to use data to make better decisions, I can't always have them jumping out to a dashboard tool. I want it to be the place that they work. And that's largely where we see this going. It's this notion of lightweight applications that fold around how people are working. And we're going to be talking a lot about that today, and you'll see some of it in the breakouts, right? So that really becomes the value. So if you think about it, we've had these three waves of tools. We think this third wave of the data platform is the thing that finally will start to deliver value to our customers, to really allow people to wrap data around their specific business processes. And we think that now there are these new workers, the instrumented workforce, that wants this, that will consume this, and we need to be ready to provide it. And I think that will fundamentally take a cultural shift that honestly, you all need to lead. Like in your organizations, you need to lead this cultural shift. And as I think about that shift, there's one person in particular, Jonathan Palmer at King, who has really started to achieve this. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to bring Jonathan up, and Daniel Mintz, who's our chief data evangelist, to maybe just kind of talk through that about how they're getting data consumers to use data in their organizations. So Daniel, Jonathan.